from what did you learn from the village that you were born into, and then what is your rites of passage, both financially, socially, emotionally, spiritually, physically, that informs who you to become and throughout life. We know that place for Black people has been defined as the ghetto, the hood, right? Like all things that aren't really necessarily associated with safety and prosperity and goodness. You watch Black movies, things that we grew up watching, from Boys in the Hood to Minister Society. It was always about the degradation of and the trauma that it just existed from just living, right? Like,
yeah.
Like, that I don't think that I know is not like what we want to be known for and as. And so I think about places like Harlem in the 20s, where because we had to be together, because we had no choice, we made the best of space. And because Black people emote culture, and we take something that was meant to destroy us and make it beautiful. We are the architects.
Amen.
So if you say, well, of American life is place, well, we are where we are. These stats exist, disparities exist because of lack of place, lack of safety, lack of generational excellence. So for me, the baseline to all of this is we have to resurrect that place. And so Camden Town is the place that we're going to fuel and fill with culture that will catalyze Black excellence. And that is, the barbershop was rooted in Black culture, in space, and to have brands and things that have scaled but have it relate back to a place. So when they say Houston like Camden Town, oh, what's Camden Town? Camden Town is this little place in North Minneapolis where this brand that's not all over the world originated. That gives that place some dexterity, right? Like, I want to know more. And then you start attracting people to move here, to live here. We got shared values, which is we want our kids to grow up safe and well educated and in a prosperous environment. And we want to have things in our neighborhood that reflect us, that benefit us, right? That we can play and work. And we have kind of this shared village-like approach, something that I don't think has ever existed, at least for me.
Always wanted to be the next podcast star? So what's the holdup? If you're looking for the easiest way to make your podcast, then listen up. Anchor gives you everything you need to make your podcast in one place for free, which you can use right from your phone or computer. Creation tools allow you to record and edit your podcast so it sounds great. And that's not all. They'll distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard everywhere: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. And you can easily make more money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Ready for your voice to be heard across the globe? So what are you waiting for? Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm, ANCHOR.FM to get started today.
In my time in Minnesota. And so that's kind of the whole idea. Camden Town is a place of Black ownership, Black wealth, Black excellence. And it's really like this burgeoning spot, an enclave of Black futurism.
And that's so dope, because I mean, just thinking about like how when we grew up, it's like, we want to be able to feel safe and, have our kids feel safe and, just like you said, have a place to just be and thrive. So that is awesome. That is so awesome. So I know when I come up there, I'm definitely going to be visiting. So I'm excited about that.
Yes.
Definitely. And another thing I think is wonderful is the beautiful way that you're paying tribute to, your wife with the Donnice N. White Legacy Fund. And it's just a beautiful way that you're just paying tribute to her life. And can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so, Donnice is like, she's my muse, right? Like, forever I'm inspired by her desire to be better. And just her sheer regalia, right? The dignity that she had as a Black woman. And so there were things that she shared with me about her own childhood, right? That she would like to have had opportunities to do, to see. And so what I set out to do was create things that would make her proud and affect the world in her name. And so Camden Town really was inspired by her as a Black woman who was desiring to leave Minnesota, right? Because it's not. So you can create a space that when and if I get that right, and she's like, yeah, then I know that it's something special, right? And so I think about how do I become a purveyor of opportunity, and if I can create businesses that do well with the excess, I can create opportunities for kids and different people, and do it in her name. And essentially that's what this is really all about. It's like the why is to honor and to create a different outcome for people of color, Black people specifically. But then be informed by some of the things that we all maybe lacked growing up. And so that's really the idea. You only die when people stop saying your name.
Yes.
So it's to keep, her ideals and ideas and hopes and dreams alive. And then she forever is informing, right? Through this kind of reverberating sense of hope and love and kindness.
The beautiful thing is, like when I was looking, you recently posted something of, I think she was talking about like what is love, what the definition of love was, and I was like, that is so beautiful. Like you guys really inspired each other. Like, you were inspired by her, but she was also inspired by the man you are, excuse me, and how you just, definitely have no limits to what you believe that you can and will achieve. So, I just think that's a beautiful thing, and just keep posting and just keep keeping her memory alive, because that's inspiration, to others as well, as far as just the legacy that you guys created together and that you continue to create, in her name. So
no doubt.
I love it. So you use hip hop often to drive the point of your mission home, like such as Jay-Z's quote, like you say, we all lose when we ain't got the tools. And it seems like you are dedicated to making sure that us as a people have the tools to succeed. So I want to ask you the question that I ask every guest on our show, from every hip hop artist, to everyone that we have as a guest. So what made you fall in love with hip hop? Because I was there in a lot of them conversations. I was there.
What made me fall in love with hip hop? Hip hop is like a surrogate parent, We were born into it, right? It raised us, and I think we all, if you think, hip hop really started to formalize in the 79. And started to really become more prominent in the mid 80s, when we were basically like 10, And so it was, for me, the soundtrack of my life. I remember getting my first boombox, which was a little purple boombox. It was purple because of Prince. And I, in Minnesota, I had one tape, and I broke it. I'm sure I did. It was a white tape. It was LL Cool J. Radio album, and I used to just be around with this purple boombox, walking all throughout Minneapolis. That was my soundtrack, right? And so if you think about how interesting that is, like that we literally were moving through day to day, going on walks with a boombox, because as a people, we got this rhythm in our DNA that we don't really understand fully, that comes from our tribal ancestry. And the beat is just like something that just makes you do what you do, but it's in a more of a modern context. So it's just, I think it was born into it, right? Like it became the soundtrack of our lives, but it's really connected to who we are ancestrally. And you know, you hearing tribal rhythms just on urban block.
Yeah, most definitely. And it's so funny because, look, I'm going to tell you, it's like, you know, Minnesota had their own, I don't know, maybe I can only speak for me, but I'm going to tell you, it's like all the people that I was hanging with, they was on the West Coast thing. But for some reason, in that class, being introduced to, you know, the love for Biggie, Wu-Tang, all of that, I'm serious, used to come from when y'all would talk about that. I didn't really know about none of that because none of my people, they was like Tupac all day, you know, it was serious. I'm like, I mean, damn, can I like it? I mean, is it a problem? You know, you know, but it was serious back then. People don't realize how really serious it really was, but I mean, it was just a cool time. It was a cool atmosphere, and I really can just say that I really learned a lot from just listening. You know, I didn't say much, as you can see, but I just sat back and just listened to y'all, and you know, definitely I used to just soak it all in.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's really interesting you bring that up because I remember being in ninth grade, and I, you know, for a lot of people it was different. You know, I had my shirt tucked in and a backpack on both shoulders, and I had a CD at the time. It was Dell, the Funky Homo Sapien.
Okay.
It was like, dude, this is weird, right? But for me, I always looked at like that music like jazz music, the early formulation of jazz when bebop and, you know, some of the more sophisticated, I mean, it was all sophisticated, but I always, you know, I'm a big fan of the late 50s, mid 60s kind of era of jazz, but like Thelonious Monk and, you know, so they were kind of off minor, right? They weren't like the pop. A lot of West Coast music was sample heavy, so it was easy listening, right? Like it was just essentially you was listening to rhythms from our parents' era, and then they just rapped over it, you know?
Right, basically.
Whereas a lot of the East Coast stuff was like a more complex wine, right? Like your palate has to kind of evolve a bit, and so you hearing a beat, and it's just like they're just playing horns and it's just some drums. Like that doesn't seem like right. But until you evolve, and that was what was so interesting about that group of people. We were all kind of searching for more, right? And that music was definitely like it was stretching us because I don't know. That was really fun. I remember having so many arguments with so many people, and I remember the day. Catching the bus downtown to the record store. It was the day. It was a day that Biggie dropped, and also J. Rue the Damager. This was '94.
Must have been '94. Yeah.
All '94, and I remember I was going down to buy Biggie. I was going to buy Biggie, and I was on the bus. And one of the OGs and I were talking, and we were talking about, I didn't know J. Rue had dropped. And so he was like, man, J. Rue, wow, dude, you know how everybody's talking like, God, you know what I'm saying? Now, Cypher God, that joint is, I was like, all right. And I ended up buying J. Rue the Damage, and I remember getting back to school, they were like, how you didn't buy Biggie? And I'll never forget what I like. It was like, listening to a cinematic opera or something, listening to The Godfather, J. Rue the Damager's album, The Sun Rises in the East. And I bought that over Biggie, but at that time, that oh my gosh. But those were those kind of decisions we were making as kids that seemed so trivial, but were so prominent.
Yes, definitely. And you know, I mean, I was just watching the Wu-Tang documentary with my husband the other day, and they were just talking about how, you know, people, even like when, you know, people just didn't understand them at first, like, you know, they had a certain sound and people was like, wow, but once they understood it, it was like, dang, you know, like, this is dope. You know, this is like something that we've never heard before. Yeah. So, you know, I just think like people like them were like pretty groundbreaking, and